after the shocking ending of issue 2, where the Justice League sacrificed their lives in order to secure the safety of Sonic and his friends, we catch up with Sonic and the others in the Justice League Watchtower, where Knuckles is demanding Mr. Terrific to send them back. It's clear that Knuckles is very upset about the situation. He isn't one to leave his friends behind, but Mr. Terrific hopelessly tries to communicate to Knuckles that he can't. There are no coordinates back to their world. Silver tries to find the silver lining in the situation, stating that at least Darkseid is gone, but even trying to find any good in this situation feels rather bleak, and it really begins to upset Amy, who is already teary-eyed thinking about the loss of her friends and everything she has ever known and held dear. Thinking logically, none of this makes sense to Tails. He isn't certain yet, but something is clearly at work in the back of his mind. Matters get even worse for Sonic and his friends when Mr. Terrific has to deliver some bad news to them if this situation wasn't already enough for them. He tells them that it won't be very long until the villains of this world realize that the core members of the Justice League are missing. Sonic basically says, well, the Justice League gave their lives trying to protect our world, we ought to return the favor. This sets up the premise of this issue, where we get to see Sonic and his friends take on the iconic roles of the Justice League in order to fight some of their most infamous villains, which ends up making this a really fun issue. There's a pretty deep moment from Shadow, who's reflecting not only in the window, but on his own feelings. In a way, he failed to protect Maria by failing to protect the world that she loved dearly, and he questions if he should even continue and fight for this world where he's a complete stranger to it. Without even realizing it, Shadow is already getting into the role of Batman by doing this. Sonic wants to know if Mr. Terrific is okay with all these animals running around the planet helping out where needed, because it could come as a shock down below. But he's basically like, well, with all the weird stuff that happens in our universe, I really don't think anyone will blink twice. Then, out of nowhere, Silver announces that Green Lantern gave him his ring as they entered the portal, which, okay, I found this part a bit silly because it seemed like John threw them into the portal using his ring from what I recall, and it just kind of seems like out of nowhere, like, oh yeah, he also gave me his ring, but I can't deny that it's cool seeing Silver in the Green Lantern Corps uniform. Mr. Terrific then tells them that if they're going to join the League, they need to look the part, and I couldn't help but imagine a suit-up montage, and if they do end up making this an animation, they really need to make this part as goofy and over the top as possible in my opinion, because something about this part came across so campy to me, but it's a lot of fun because of that. So it seems like we jump a few weeks after that conversation, and Sonic and his friends are still stuck in the Justice League's universe, but at this point they've taken up the respective mantle of their friends. Silver is fighting alongside the Green Lantern Corps against Sinestro. Sinestro is a very powerful threat. He too was once a Green Lantern, but his desire for power ended up corrupting him, and he eventually became the leader of the Yellow Lantern Corps. And if you're not into DC, you might be wondering, well, what's the difference between the Green Lanterns and the Yellow Lanterns? Essentially, the Green Lanterns harness willpower to fight, whereas the Yellow Lanterns channel the power of fear. Working in unison, the Green Lanterns managed to defeat and apprehend Sinestro. It turns out that he had been using something to enhance the power of his lantern battery. As Chip looks inside, he pulls out a Chaos Emerald, much to the surprise of Silver. By all means, these were thought to be lost alongside Sonic's world. Silver knows at this point he needs to hurry off and report this, but before leaving, he tells Chip that he's going to have one of the other Earth Lanterns fill in for him, and he proceeds to name drop a lot of other known lanterns like Kyle Rayner, Hal Jordan, and Guy Gardner. In Washington, D.C., Supergirl and Hawkgirl find themselves in a predicament as Gorilla Grodd leads an invading force from Gorilla City. However, just like Sinestro's powers were being enhanced, Gorilla Grodd's psychic power has increased tenfold thanks to the help of a Chaos Emerald, which he has implemented into his headpiece. Grod is a prominent DC villain who is not only very intelligent, but also very strong. He's led the Legion of Doom before and has appeared in plenty of shows like The Flash, Justice League Unlimited, as well as games like Injustice 2. But he's not to be confused with Mala, another super intelligent gorilla villain whom fans of the Teen Titans show would probably be familiar with. Just as it seems that all is lost for Hawkgirl and Supergirl, Grodd's neck gets lassoed as he's pulled back towards none other than Amy, who is donning Wonder Woman's armor. With one mighty blow from her Pico Pico hammer, she takes Grodd down. With the sidekick out of the fight, Supergirl quickly gets to work fighting off the guerrilla forces. Amy proceeds to help Hawkgirl to her feet, and Hawkgirl immediately sets her sights on destroying Grod's mind control device without even thinking twice, which is very in line with her character. For those not aware, Hawkgirl is a Thanagarian warrior, and she can sometimes be one of the more aggressive members of the Justice League. However, Amy stops her before she can destroy it, realizing that this is a Chaos Emerald from her homeworld, and this really excites her as she's been holding out hope that not all is lost for her planet. However, she still has a job at hand with this invasion, so she ends up slapping her face a bit, knowing that she needs to stay focused before she can deal with the emerald. I want to take a quick moment to let you all know that I now have a second channel where I will be uploading content on comics, movies, and video games that are not directly tied to Sonic the Hedgehog, so if you enjoy my videos and you're interested in seeing more, head on over to my second channel, Sonic Theory Plus. The link is down below in the description. Then we get to Knuckles, which is probably my favorite part of this issue. He's flying high above the Metropolis skyline, taking on the responsibilities of Superman. Knuckles realizes that while Metropolis isn't as big as his island, it does come with its own set of difficulties to manage, because it's more layered and noisy. Knuckles in a way looks up to Superman, stating that he's going to have to work extra hard if he's going to be as good of a guardian as him, since Superman not only watched over Metropolis, but the entire world as well. Knuckles ends up meeting with Lois Lane, and here we learn that Star Labs is aiding with the search for their world and the Justice League. It's also revealed that Tails is busy working alongside the Teen Titans to do the same, and this honestly just makes me want to cross over with the Teen Titans and Sonic, especially with all of them being younger. I can see those two groups meshing really well, so fingers crossed for a second crossover with DC. She then tells Knuckles that Lex Luthor wants to speak with him, but she isn't too sure about what. However, the hope is that it has something to do with finding Clark. As Knuckles glides away, she warns him that Lex is more dangerous than he seems, and Knuckles is just like, yeah, all these bald evil genius guys are the same way. When Knuckles arrives, Lex mocks him, stating he's slower than a speeding bullet and as subtle as a locomotive, which is a play on the description of Superman's powers.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive.
Lex essentially wants to team up with Knuckles since he's the new hero of Metropolis, and it's pretty clear that he just wants to manipulate Knuckles and have him under his thumb. This isn't the first time that a bald evil genius has tried to manipulate Knuckles to work for him, and Knuckles calls this out like, hey, I've been down this road before and I'm not falling for the same shtick twice. This might be one of the funniest moments in this comic because after being refused a partnership from Knuckles, Lex pulls out the green Chaos Emerald thinking that it's kryptonite in hopes that Knuckles is weak to it as well. And Knuckles is just like, oh, you found a Chaos Emerald, thanks man. Lex ends up playing it off like, oh, right, yeah, that was a token of friendship, as he's sweating bullets. So Knuckles glides away with the emerald, and Lex pours himself a drink to unwind from that awkward situation, but as he does, Knuckles turns around mid-flight and crashes through the building, pushing Lex over, and he's like,
wait a minute!
were you trying to poison me thinking this was kryptonite? And I just love how long it took Knuckles to realize Lex's motive, and then his face on this panel is great. This whole part just cracked me up. But I do want to note that this is one of those moments where you kind of just have to roll with the comic and have fun with it, because honestly, I think Lex would be able to tell apart a powerful gem such as a Chaos Emerald from kryptonite, which is something that Lex should be really familiar with. However, for the fun of the crossover, I really did enjoy this moment. Then we get to Gotham City, and the Joker is going ballistic, driving through the city and blowing stuff up. But just like the Joker expected, Shadow arrived to the scene, whom Joker refers to as the Shadow of the Bat. The Joker makes a lot of jokes at Shadow's expense during this fight, and he ends up blowing up the Batmobile, which was honestly a mistake on his part, because if anything, that was only slowing Shadow down. And when Shadow gets to his feet, he spin dashes right through the Joker mobile, destroying it. As the Joker recovers, he essentially tells Shadow he's got the mood and demeanor down to replace Batman, but there's a certain cadence to all of this he needs to work on, and mid-conversation, Shadow shuts the Joker up by roundhouse kicking him, ending things really fast as he retrieves the next emerald. Finally, we check in at Central City where Sonic is mid-battle with Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash. The Reverse Flash taunts Sonic, telling him that he isn't worthy enough to be the next Flash, and funnily enough, ends up telling Sonic he isn't even good enough to be his fake, which I'm sure caused some deja vu for him.
You're not even good enough to be I'll make you eat those words!
Sonic dashes toward him, and the Reverse Flash dodges it easily, calling himself the fastest man alive. But when he looks down at his hand, he realizes that his emerald is gone and has been replaced with a pop can. Sonic mocks him and questions Eobard if he moved too fast for him to see, before saying, "Don't blink," and this really puts fear into the Reverse Flash's eyes, as Sonic unleashes a flurry of attacks. Lying on the ground, totally beaten, he ponders if Sonic tapped into the Speed Force, but he quickly dismisses that notion and wonders if instead he used the emerald to warp. With the emerald in hand, Sonic calls the rest of the team and tells them what he found. Amy brings him to speed, telling Sonic that the Chaos Emeralds have been popping up everywhere, and Tails wants everyone to meet up so they can discuss it. As everyone gathers outside the Hall of Justice, they begin to make their way in when they're stopped by a green-looking Knuckles who says only one otter per planet, and it turns out that this is Beast Boy from the Teen Titans. Which, growing up watching the show Teen Titans, Beast Boy was always one of my favorite heroes. He's a really funny character with the power to turn into animals, and as it turns out, he can morph into Sonic-like animals as well. Now, there's something really funny about this green version of Knuckles that Ian Flynn is pulling a deep cut with. Not only is it a reference to Chaos Knuckles from the Archie comics where Knuckles is infused with chaos energy from his father, which ends up turning him green, basically making him a living Chaos Emerald, but the mention of otters also refers to Rankles the Otter, which was an urban legend stemming from the Sega UK magazine where they claimed there was another character in Sonic 3 and Knuckles called Rankles the Otter who was green. It's a very bizarre and blink if you'll miss it reference, especially since every animal that Beast Boy turns into is green anyways. Tails asks Beast Boy to watch over things while they're gone, as they have some issues to discuss, and once again, I just really want a Teen Titans Sonic crossover now. Sonic quips to Knuckles that he looks bad in green, and Knuckles responds that if he doesn't stop, he'll introduce him to the Phantom Zone projector. This is a device that Superman uses to contain some of his most powerful foes. It's essentially an interdimensional prison, and was also featured in the Lego Batman movie. But this line makes me wonder if Knuckles has been up to the Fortress of Solitude, which is Superman's base. Tails informs the others that alongside the Teen Titans, they managed to acquire another emerald from Brother Blood, who was also a big threat in the Teen Titans show. And I really wish we got to see this fight so we could have seen more of the Teen Titan members. However, with this, their emerald count is now up to 6 out of 7 emeralds. And by using the other 6, they're able to hone in on the coordinates of Sonic's world, where Darkseid has the final emerald. Excited with finding their home, Tails exclaims, "Booyah!" It turns out that Darkseid's dimensional engine ended up creating a pocket dimension, hiding their world away. With the way back home finally possible, Shadow says something that I found really dumb. He questions if they should go back because if they do, it means Darkseid could come back here and this planet would be vulnerable. But all I can think is that 1, Darkseid initially came from this universe, and 2, you're fine with everyone from your homeworld being enslaved by Darkseid? It just doesn't make much sense to me for this to even be a question from Shadow. But Knuckles and Amy set things straight, telling the others that if the League was willing to give their lives to help their world, they've got to return the favor. And with the help of Mr. Terrific, they ready the portal generator using the new coordinates and prepare to head back. And who knows what or who will be waiting for them on the other side. Overall, this was a really fun issue, and we're now over halfway done with this run, as there are now only 2 issues left, and it just seems like this is flying by. I do wish this was a bit longer and things could be a little more fleshed out, because for me, it's so cool seeing all these DC characters or hearing them mentioned, but they only have time to stick around for like a page or so. But the fact that we're seeing the likes of Silver go up against Sinestro and Shadow face someone as iconic as the Joker, it's just all so cool. I'm excited to see the main Justice League in the next issue, and I'm kind of curious if Darkseid has started to corrupt Sonic's world in the time that they were away. They might be in for a rude awakening when they return home. Anyways, that's it for issue 3. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the comments. As always, I wish you all the best, take care, peace.